Yes, welcome into Sports Bit. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy, Monday, September 25th. Big game breakdown, Monday Night Football, the deep dive. We recap the wild college football weekend. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. As always on Monday, we start with the NFL, Teddy. One of the best days ever for bookmakers in Las Vegas, for bookmakers, period. The underdog started 9-1 in the early games. The only win was Atlanta, which Detroit scored, and then it was reversed. I mean, you had a scenario, Teddy, a 61-yard field goal for Philly, an epic comeback for Brady and the Patriots, and then Detroit thinks they scored to win the game. You could have had a 10-team money dog underline parlay. It was crazy.
Yeah, it certainly was an exciting NFL Sunday. We got to start by talking about the politics, of course, and of course, we're not going to talk about politics on the show unless we're betting on it, but certainly yesterday's games in the NFL about a little bit more than football here in the United States. A lot of protests and all of that. But when it came down to the actual action, I'll tell you what, it was a fun NFL Sunday. And look, yesterday was truly a banner day for bookmakers. All the parlays went down. All the teasers went down. Most of the combinations went down. And of course, we saw insanity in a sense. 7 teams scored 24 or more points and lost the game. And look at that compared to what we saw the first couple of weeks of the season. If you scored 24 plus in week 1, 14-1. 24 plus in week 2, you go 15-0. That's 29-1 coming into this week. 24 plus only got you 8-7 in Sunday's NFL action. 8 games decided by 6 or less, 2 into overtime. And look at the tweet from David Payne-Purdom. NFL Dogs 10-3 against the spread since Thursday. And this, of course, came before the Sunday night game. Quote, could be a monster day if Washington covers.
And talking to some bookmakers, apparently no one took advantage of this, putting in the underdog moneyline parlays. One bettor had $340,000 on Steelers moneyline at the MGM property here in Las Vegas. That went up in smoke. $25,000 teaser on the Steelers and Dolphins. Both teams lose. Mike Tomlin now 5-13 in his last 18 road games against teams under 500. But, I mean, huge payday there possibly, Teddy, if people put the right teams together when you look at some of these crazy payouts with all the road chop.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did a deep dive on the subject last week. I thought it was important to bring it up again on Monday morning and talking about these underdog moneyline parlays, a legitimate way to bet a little and make a lot. One of the sportsbook's biggest vulnerabilities. And as you mentioned, nobody took advantage of it. Look at the dogs cashing on the money line. The Jags, the Bears, the Jets, the Bills, the Saints, the Redskins, all coming through for underdog better. If you parlayed a couple of those combos together, you had a very, very nice Sunday, as opposed to most NFL bettors around the country and around the globe.
All right, hard to call it a bad beat, but the Lions +3. Listen, you gave up 30 points, and Matt Ryan had 3 interceptions. So you're supposed to win the game. Not to mention the whole final drive was set up with bullshit. It was supposed to be 3rd and 30, and the Falcons got called for defensive holding, automatic first down. And then there was a second, I think it was 3rd and long, and there was a PI on Atlanta that put it inside the 5. So I thought it was the right call, right decision. It's the right rule. Tate didn't get in, 10-second runoff, ball game. Atlanta survives on the road.
Yeah, I mean, we can't truly call it a bad beat because the Lions never led. And if the Lions would have won, as you mentioned, we'd be calling Atlanta a bad beat. So let's just settle a tough beat for this one. 2 tweets worth noting here. One from ESPN Stats and Info. Matt Ryan going 309 passes without an interception, then throwing 3 picks in 15 attempts versus Detroit. 2 of them weren't his fault. Right off of his receiver's hands into the arms of Darius Slay for the Lions. But the fact that Atlanta -3 in turnovers and they win the game on the road and cover the number, that's something. And of course, from our friend here in Las Vegas, Clay Baker at Clay the Producer, quote, what could be better on an NFL Sunday than to watch Detroit get effed in a new and creative ways? Unbelievable, classic Lions magic. And look, the Lions were impressive in a lot of ways on Sunday, even though their defense got torched. They made some plays, and Stafford made plays down the stretch when it mattered most, but the refs got involved in that insanity final minute. And, of course, yeah, that was classic Lions magic. Tough beat if you had Detroit.
And another over for Atlanta. This from Bill Simmons. Their last 12 games indoors, they've scored 30, 48, 30, 33, 38, 28, 41, 38, 36, 44, 28, and 34 points. Amazing. I mean, a lot went wrong. A lot of crazy shit yesterday. How about the London game? That might be the worst performance I've ever seen by a quarterback. Flacco had 28 yards passing and 2 interceptions. Late in the fourth quarter, the Ravens had 70 yards of offense and then padded their stats with 2 garbage drives, 2 late drives in garbage time, Teddy. And of course, I talked you off a great winner on Friday's show as the play of the day's been on fire. I said I couldn't get to the window with Bortles. I think there was any way it could have gone over with shenanigans. One team almost pitches a shutout, and it flies over, Teddy. Sorry.
It flies over the total. Here's the tweet from ESPN Stats and Info. Joe Flacco recorded a total QBR of 0.8 today. That's the worst single-game total QBR of his career and the worst by any quarterback this season. Of course, Flacco had a QBR of 0.8 in the game, flew over the total in the second half of that contest. Tough beat for underbettors when you got it half right. But, of course, the Jags went nuts off of Flacco's mistakes. And, look, we told you right here on Sports, but if there's ever a week that we did our job for you, last week was the week, man. We gave you all the info on the Baltimore offensive line situation. We did a whole feature on what Marshall Yanda meant to that team. We read you quotes. You had to know it was coming. Hopefully you watched the show and made some money off of that ball game, even though the under wasn't any good. Tough beat in that regard.
A bad bet. The Raiders bet up to 3.5 everywhere. Carr and the offense couldn't do anything. Less than 200 yards of offense. Lynch shut down. Carr didn't do anything. 27-10 Redskins dominated the Raiders Sunday night.
Sure, and it was nothing but Oakland money. Here's a tweet from Dave Mason, our good friend from betonline.ag. Raiders up to 3.5-point favorites. Biggest bet, game, and decision of the young season. Just 25% of the cash on the Skins. Bookmakers had a banner day on Sunday. No game was better for them than this one. Oakland, they have 7 first downs? I mean, that was a complete shit show for the Raiders. They came out flat, and you're going to see that time and again, even though it was a Sunday night national TV game coming off the impressive performance they had last week. Just weren't able to do it in back-to-back weeks. Good result for the House.
Another one, Eagles took heavy money, bet up to 6, and they were lucky to win after blowing a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. But Elliott wins it from 61 yards, 27-24.
And, of course, if you had the Giants minus the points, you're rooting, or plus the points, you're rooting for Jake Elliott to make that field goal at the end. You don't want to sweat out an Eli pick 6. You don't want to do anything that's going to screw your ticket because, of course, the Giants scored 21 in the fourth quarter. Eli finally got going. And then when it mattered most, the Giants defense ran out of gas. Eagles marched down the field. Jake Elliott, quote, after the 61-yard field goal, after getting signed off the waiver wire. It's a kind of a blur to me. I don't usually go out that long during the course of my warm-up. I usually go out 50, 56, maybe 57, and call it a day from there. He missed a 52-yarder earlier in the game. 61-yarder to win the game. Look at that. They're carrying him off the field on their shoulders.
This also from Bill Simmons. Eli Manning is now 30-37 in his last 67 starts. Only Phillip Rivers has more losses going back to 2013. And since 2013, he has a lower quarterback rating than Foles, Kaepernick, and Cutler. As one reader wrote in, he's 2 Hail Mary passes away from being Kerry Collins. All right, well, this is easy. Pros against Joe's recap. I mean, this is the books that cater to the wise guys had a rough day, but the public got destroyed.
Yeah, they sure did. And again, we did this last Monday. The pros had a good day. The Joes had a bad day. Now we're doing it again this Monday. And look at the pros. This is, again, information that we gave you on the weekend preview show last Friday. Pros, who were the professional bettors. They're on the Bears, winner, right side. Saints, winner, right side. Titans, winner, right side. Bungles, winner. Let's call them the Bengals. They bungled that game away, though. Winner. Yeah. And, of course, they like Arizona tonight. We'll see that how that game turns out. And for the Joes, what? I mean, we got to talk about the Bears first for a minute, just for a minute. Did you see them run all over Pittsburgh in that ballgame? Was that just one of those spots, Pauly? Or was that something to watch for these two teams moving forward?
No, that's what Tomlin does against bad teams. I don't understand it. He can't. The Steelers stink against bad teams. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Roethlisberger now with one touchdown pass or less 8 times in his last 10 road games. You don't think there's a home road dichotomy for Pittsburgh? There is.
Yeah.
But look at this one. The Joes, I mean, the books that cater to recreational players had a great day on Sunday. They lost with the Chiefs. Okay, but the bettors, the books lost with the Chiefs. The bettors won with the Chiefs, but they lost with the Broncos, with the Raiders, with the Steelers, with the Dolphins. Oh, look at the honorable mention. Remember, there were so many that the public liked this. We got to put an honorable mention up there. Patriots losers, Ravens losers, Packers losers, Eagles losers. They did cash with the Falcons, as we know. Took a hell of a sweat to cash that Falcons ticket yesterday. So, wise guys had a great day. Recreational player has a miserable day. And obviously, the books that face those particular audiences had days that reflected what their audience and bettors were able to get down.
One more thing, too, because we are Sports Center for bettors and for gamblers. There was a big NBA trade, at least with a big name, a guy who didn't do much in New York. Melo goes to OKC, a little uptick in OKC's win total. How about this, though? Because they trade Melo, they get Cantor, McDermott, and a second-round pick. The Knicks' win total hardly moved. I think Jeff Sherman said on second blush he decided to drop it only down to 29.5. No effect on Anthony, who can score, but it's a black hole and doesn't make his teammates better.
Okay, understand what Carmelo Anthony is. He is an NBA scorer who has been in a major media market, and he's been their superstar. So he's gotten an inordinate amount of hype. Mm-hmm. This is Sports Center for gamblers. That's why you watch this show every day. That's why we're talking about NBA on a Monday when there's a ton of football. But you have to be able to recognize the difference between someone that's getting hyped because he's in a major media market and his wife's a reality TV star and someone that actually makes a difference in NBA games. Carmelo Anthony's a superstar. Great. The betting markets said Carmelo Anthony is worth one game, the OKC's win total, and the Knicks win total didn't move initially. You said, all right, he moved it down a point after. One game in the Knicks win total. That's what Melo is worth. Absolutely nothing when it comes to bettors here in Las Vegas. He is a media creation. He is not an impact player for the Oklahoma City Thunder or for the New York Knicks, for that matter.
Yeah, well said there. Well said. Up next, big game breakdown. Monday Night Football. Gonna road favorite cover. Dallas laying 3 tonight. We get to college recap and the deep dive on SportsBet. Betting Insight today at SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Hey, back on SportsBet. Betting Insight today. Time for big game breakdown. Always sponsored and powered by Bet Online. Exceptional customer service, strong promotions, every type of wager we're looking for. Monday night. Tonight, why do I keep saying Monday night? Cowboys 3, 46.5 the total. I don't think Palmer has anything left in the tank. He stunk for 2 years. Now, look at this from our stats guy who's the best. Passer rating, Carson Palmer, 2015, 104.6. Last year, 87.2. This year, 65.5. But it's even worse because they played the Lions and the Colts so far. And on Football Outsiders' pass defense last year, the Colts were 28th and the Lions were dead last, Teddy.
Yeah, they sure were. And then look, the Lions' pass defense has been a little bit better this year than last year. Indies, well, the jury's still out on that. But the bottom line is that Carson Palmer has had 2 lousy games at best. We'll call them bad mediocre at best against 2 very suspect pass defense. Now, it's not all on Palmer. They had 5 expected starters that didn't play last week at Indy. You're talking about, obviously, the key to the running game in David Johnson and John Brown, speedster on the outside. And, of course, a couple guys on the offensive line in Humphreys and Upati. And the tight end, Jermaine Gresham. Well, Gresham might play tonight. Upati might play tonight. The other 3 guys are out. And, oh, by the way, the rest of the receiving core a little bit banged up as well. Certainly J.J. Nelson, a guy who was an impact player in the fourth quarter for them last week. He's been limited in practice. He's got a hamstring injury, although it looks like he is going to be able to suit up and play for Arizona this evening.
How big of a deal is this that it's Arizona's first home game in a month?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt. And their last 2 preseason games were at Atlanta, at Denver, and then at Detroit and at Indy. So two trips east. So it's been a while. Look at the quote from Bruce Arians. It's tired us out. It's going to be great to be in front of our fans, and I know the stadium will be rocking. When we're looking for other teams that played their first two on the road and came home in week 3, well, you have the New York Jets. They played their best game of the season yesterday. And then you had the Philadelphia Eagles coming home after 2 road games to open the campaign. They got the win, but not the cover against the Giants. Of course, if Arizona wins this game, they must cover, being that they're underdogs going in. And, of course, this is one the wise guys like. The wise guys were all about the spot here for the Cards coming back home after all of those road games, 4 in a row, dating back to August.
Well, you should it's a great spot for the Cowboys. They were embarrassed in Denver. They should be pissed off. They lost a few games last year, but it's the first time that Dak and Elliott have been run out and embarrassed. The game plan was to make Prescott beat them. That's from Derek Wolfe, because they knew they couldn't do it, and he struggled big time against the Broncos. 238 passing yards and 50 attempts. Dak, quote, "I don't buy into that. I just think we didn't play our game. We didn't execute the way that we should or we normally do. I encourage teams and hope teams give us the same scheme and those same matchups. I'm not buying in. I know I'll get better from it. I know this team will get better from it, and it'll be a learning experience," end quote. Can Des Bryant beat top corners as well? A lot of people have been chirping about that because the Giants have shut him down. The Broncos shut him down, and now we'll see how much if he's able to beat this Arizona secondary too, Teddy.
Yeah, but it's not Arizona secondary that people have all the question marks going about for tonight's game. The bigger issue is the Dallas Cowboys secondary, and it's a significant injury. Nolan Carroll's not going to play tonight. Chidobe Awuzie is not going to play tonight. Orlando Scandrick, he didn't play versus Denver. He is expected to suit up. We're not sure how healthy he's going to be. So we're talking about a pair of cornerbacks out and a third one banged up for the Cowboys. That's a concern going up against any decent passing game. And say what you want about Arizona. Their passing game is still going to be decent this season. The one good news for Dallas, they do get Demontre Moore, the defensive end, back after a 2-game suspension for substance abuse.
We'll get back to this with Play of the Day. Up next, the Deep Dive. We recap college football. We start with some bad beats over the weekend and some blowouts coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrap it up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Play of the Day in a second. Now college football. Every Monday, it's the Deep Dive in the last segment. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. It's always fun to run this down. Bad beat, Hawaii +6. It flashed 7.5 for a second. That was available early, but this Hawaii took a ton of money from the opener. Wyoming wins by 7 in overtime. They get the ball first. They score. Hawaii throws an interception. They dominated the game and lost by 7. Tough beat, Teddy.
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, 25-12 in first downs for Hawaii. They completely shut down Josh Allen, a guy who people was talking about as a potential #1 overall pick. Not if you watched him play this year. 450 to 269 total offense for Hawaii. Didn't matter. Game goes to OT. Wyoming scores a touchdown, +6. Yeah, that's a tough beat. That's a bad beat if you had Hawaii. One better in the world probably got the +7.5 in their pocket. Good for you. Nobody else did. Everyone else with the Warriors lost or pushed that game, even though they probably had a right side.
All right, you were watching this game Friday night. How bad was this Utah-Arizona total?
Oh, it was pretty frustrating. I had the over in that game. If you got down early, you got down at 55, 55.5, 56. It closed 61. They had 4 different long drives with no points. There were multiple missed field goals. End of the game, you had Dawkins going in for the score. Oh, he fumbles at the 20. Arg, it was a pretty frustrating over. Loss finished with 54 over 55. Are you better early? Yeah, that was a tough beat.
How about Louisville laying 42, up 42-3? They had looking like a 99-yard touchdown drive. They fumble going in at the 1.
Oh, that was brutal. That was probably the toughest beat of the day. And it's hard to say, all right, here's the 42-point favorite. That's a bad beat. But they have a 99-yard fourth quarter drive. They march down the field like butter. It's a 31-yard touchdown pass. Yeah, they're going to cover. Oh, no! Fumble at the goal line. So the final score, 42-3 instead of 49-3. They were 42-point chalk. Ouch.
Tough beat and bad for the books. Purdue led late in the third quarter, and then Michigan scored 3 long touchdown drives, and Purdue did nothing on offense the rest of the way. So Michigan gets the money late, and there was a big move on Michigan too, Teddy. Maybe they found a quarterback as Sept left with an injury.
Yeah, look at the tweet from ESPN Stats and Info. Wolverine teams that had 1 red zone touchdown in 10 trips with Wilson Speight scored 2 on their first 2 red zone trips with John O'Korn. And as you mentioned, yeah, Purdue led this game with 3 minutes left in the third. That's a tough beat if you had the Boilermakers in that contest when the Wolverines ended up winning by 18. We'll get back to this game in just a moment because this, as you mentioned, a bad game for the books. We got a pick to show next time.
Bad beat and bad for the books. Ball State opened 12, bet down to 7. They led with 1:40 left, gave up a touchdown and then a pick 6. Western Kentucky wins 33-21. If you took 11 or 11 and a half, that's as bad as it gets.
Oh, my God. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the bettors there was early news. Riley Neal's not going to play. That's what caused the quarterback, that caused all the move against Ball State. And then they're leading the game anyway with less than 2 minutes to go. Oh, man, the pick 6 at the end after the late touchdown. Those are killers. That was a bad result for the books and a tough beat for anyone who had the card.
All right, here we go. Rapid fire. Bad bets. What were they doing here? North Carolina opened a 3-point dog, went off the favorite against Duke. They lost by 10. What a job by Cutcliffe. He led again. And Mississippi State. This was as low as 2.5 in Vegas. A total no-show. I thought it was a bad spot because everyone's been pumping their tires for a week, telling them how great they are. Game was over in the first quarter. Georgia beat them 31-3.
It sure was. Hey, David Cutcliffe for Duke doing it again at crunch time. You don't think of Duke as a dominant fourth quarter team? How about this? They won the fourth quarter 41-7 so far this season. Rallied from behind on the road at North Carolina. That was an impressive performance for Duke, although the difference in that game was a particularly ugly pick 6 from the Tar Heels in the fourth quarter. And as for the Bulldogs, what they do? That's how many NFL running backs does that team have? They ran all over Mississippi State. You can see it from the photo. That was a good result for the house. Lots of bad bets coming on Mississippi State.
Explain this one. UCLA took money and the under. Stanford almost got it by themselves. UCLA bet down from 9.5 to 7. The under 63.5 to 59.5. Bryce Love had 260 yards rushing. Stanford all over UCLA, 58-34. UCLA's allowed 44, 23, 48, and 58 points. I didn't understand Michigan State +5 down to 3, blown out by Notre Dame, 38-18.
I'll explain the rationale behind the 2 moves. The one is that Marcus didn't trust Stanford and expected Stanford to slow it down. But in terms of when you think it through, I don't know that you ever want to put money on UCLA's defense. Certainly not this season. I was as surprised as the money coming on the under in that game as you were, but you don't think of Stanford as a team totaled in the 60s. And as for Sparty, they were just betting pedigree and spot. Michigan State off a bye. Michigan State beat this team last year. Huge game for the Spartans. Didn't matter. The Fighting Irish were the better squad. Michigan State was sloppy, and that was certainly a good result for the bookmakers. Bad result for the player.
Yeah, I don't think they took money. But this might go down as one of the worst bets of the year. Utah State was 1.5 at San Jose State.
Yeah.
San Jose State lost 61-10 at home.
Yeah.
In a first conference game. Oh my God, that's unbelievable. They play UNLV Saturday. Check that out. All right, bad for the books. As you mentioned, Michigan opened 10 up to 13.5, 128-10. Virginia Tech. Boy, Fuente's a good coach. Even with the look-ahead spot with Clemson coming to town. No letdown. Open 24.5, close 29.5, shutout Old Dominion, 38-0. And Bob Davie, boy, can he coach. +12, down to +8. Beat Tulsa on the road and only allowed 13 points.
Yeah, I mean, all of those bad for the house. Ton of Michigan money from the Wise Guys. Virginia Tech money came from everybody. New Mexico money for the Wise Guys. All of those winners for the players. And, of course, there's a middle we got to talk about. West Virginia opened -20.5, got bet up to 24 against Kansas. Where'd the game land? 22, right in the middle. That's never a good thing for the house, although considering all the West Virginia money, I think they'd have rather it landed 22 than landed 25. Kansas at least showed something on the offensive side of the football.
Yep, and one more. Bama 18 up to 20 in some spots. We wanted to get this in with Vandy. They went interception, punt, fumble, punt, end of the half, punt. Teddy, yards, 677 to 78. First downs, 38 to 3. 59-0 Alabama. Oh.
And that's a conference game against a team that came in unbeaten, undefeated. So it speaks volumes about what Alabama is capable of doing when they bring their A game. It's Alabama and everybody else in college football. It has been for the last 5 years plus. That hasn't changed in 2017.
But they've lost in a couple of those games too in the playoff. All right, money time. Play of the day. Apologies for talking the listeners into the Jacksonville under instead of Jacksonville. Sorry about that, Teddy. Let's stay hot. Back to Monday Night Football. What do you want to do?
Sure, let's go with the over right here. Game number 489, 490. Those are the betting numbers. We have the Cowboys and the Cardinals. A couple of teams with suspect secondaries this evening. A Sunday night game that stayed under. Let's expect a little more fireworks tonight. This is what you do when you have a cluster injury situation in the secondary. You bet the over. Monday Night Football, 49-490. Cowboys, Cards, over 46.5. That's our play of the day.
All right, there it is. We're back tomorrow. Recap Monday Night Football. Some early line moves, at least what some openers are at, and if we see any movement in the markets. And there's only a week left. When we get on the air tomorrow, only 6 days left of the regular season in Major League Baseball. So all that coming up. And don't forget Dave Mason as well on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.